Welcome to TrulyFit.
Rebecca, welcome back to the TrulyFit Podcast. Today we have a bunch of topics we're going to be talking about, everything from TikTok to liquid gold trending to cortisol cocktails and the rest, some fitness, some nutrition. But for anyone who doesn't know you, who hasn't heard you on a previous podcast, just quickly give your bona fides.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, first and foremost, I'm your sister. I'm also a board certified state licensed dietitian, and I have my own private practice here in Miami Beach. So I generally specialize in weight loss, but focusing really on all aspects of health and metabolic health.
Well, thanks for hopping on. And we were a little bit delayed today because of life with toddlers. I took my toddler home yesterday because her whole daycare was sick. So I was like, I'm going to avoid her getting sick. Took her home, fine all day, put her to sleep, 12:30, daddy. She puked in the bed. And then basically every hour until 5 a.m. she puked. So I just I just lay on the floor next to her, because the problem is when the child's throwing up that often, you only have so many sheets that you can change and only so many outfits and all these things, right? So like you don't want them to throw up in the bed. Yeah. So when they say they have to puke, the quicker you can get to them and bring them to the bathroom, the less like cleanup you have. Sure. And the easier it is to get right back to sleep. So like I'm there, it's like a football drill. Like when you're laying on your back and the coach blows the whistle, she says, "Daddy," and I'm just like, I'm up in an instant. I grab her, I like put her head on my shoulder, like puke on me, don't puke on anything else, get her to the bathroom, puke, and then like wash everything, Clorox everything, back down on the bed, just back and forth.
Oh my gosh, you're running on adrenaline. Yeah.
Oh. But it's so funny because it reminds me of like the story you were telling when you were going to the airport with Aurelia that one time. I think you told part of the story on the podcast. And like, you get to the airport, you're sitting in 2 hours of traffic, then your flight gets canceled, then you get back, and then she pukes all over the car. And like, it's only like toddlers are very sitcom-esque where all the things go wrong. Yeah. And the timing is so bad. So like she finally felt better and we were like getting ready to go in the morning, and I put her in the car. The doors are open in the car. I have like her lunch in there, all the stuff. And she's like, "Daddy, I got to throw up." So you have to like run her into the house. The doors are open in the car's on, the lunch is on top of the thing. Like just, it never fails that there's always like sitcom moments every time your kid is sick.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Toddlers will keep you on your toes. I don't think there's any sort, for anyone who doesn't have kids, right, or doesn't have kids yet, I don't think there's any sort of explanation we could give that can make people feel it until they've lived it. Like it's one of those experiences, right, where like you can't even articulate all the chaos that goes on and all the adrenaline and all the stress until you're actually in it.
Yeah. And that's why I hate, we've talked about this before. We won't go too far down this rabbit hole now. I want to get into the nutrition and health topics. We can come back to this. But I do really hate a lot of the very specific parenting advice. If you want to give generalities, if you want to talk about what you do, but I hate these quote unquote, like even these experts who give specific advice. It's like, well, you don't know my child and my relationship with my child. Like I wouldn't be like, "Oh, here, Rebecca, I'm going to give you some relationship advice for you and your husband." Why? Because that seems rude, right? How can someone say like, "Oh, I'm going to give you advice for your child"? And I think the problem is because they group children together. It's like, oh, adults are all different. You and Nick and me and Kayla and Bob and Cindy and Leah, we're all different. But children are just children. So, children are just little humans. They're all different. Like there's no difference. Like you can't just give generalities for all these children because they don't respond the same.
For sure. Yeah. You have to parent the child you have. It's a unique thing. What works for one kid is not going to work for another. So yeah, anyone who's pushing, it has to be this way, has their own agenda.
Even the phrases though, that's the big part. Like I get, there are some things like your pediatrician will say, "Have your kids eat vegetables." Like that's not a weird thing to say, right? That's a generality that makes sense. But to say something like this, like a behavioral issues, that's what really like grinds my gears when someone says like, "Oh, don't ever tell your child you're going to leave the room without them." It's like, what? Like who? Like first of all, you can't do longitudinal studies on that. Second of all, even if you could, your child's not like my child, and how does that work? Like, don't tell people what to say and how to act around their children. That seems like a boundary that goes too far. And also, you almost have no evidence for it because the problem is like, what are you going to check 25 years from now? Like how your child is acting in the real world in order to see if that caused them some sort of like long-term anxiety. So that's my rant.
It's gone too far. I support you.
Okay, so let's get into some health and fitness stuff. Liquid gold trending. What is it? Why is it trending? Should we be doing this? Is this something that's actually old, but we just are hearing about it now because things come back in a cyclical fashion?
So liquid gold is colostrum supplements. And so colostrum is the initial substance that comes out when a woman is breastfeeding. So it comes out within the first couple days, and it's really healthy for the baby. It has protein, it has fatty acids, antioxidants. It even has antibodies, immunoglobulins. So really, really healthy. So that's why they tell you, even if you can't breastfeed long term, can you just try it at first to give the baby that boost. So now people have taken colostrum and put it into supplements. I've seen it in powder forms and in packets. I haven't seen it in actual pill capsules. And I will tell you, I think the idea behind it, I think in theory, it makes sense, right? And I think a few years ago, I heard that like bodybuilders were consuming breast milk. I don't know if you heard that. That was like in the news for a while. So this is similar, right? It is like nature's perfect food. Definitely has a lot of benefits in theory. And I think if you have a wife that just had a baby and you can get it in real time, awesome. However, the problem here is the execution, right? Again, these supplements are not FDA regulated. Someone could basically be making them in their bathtub. There's no standard for formulation or quality control for these companies. And so if you look into it, the ones that I've looked into, I haven't been impressed by, right? They don't have like a chief scientific officer or a medical advisory board where you're like, oh, this is a product I can trust. So what's on the label may not be what's actually in the package. So I think in theory, yes, there's some promising early research that talks about how it can help improve immune health and gut health. But it's very early research. I'd like to see some more. But I do question the quality of the supplements out there. And I think, people see influencers taking it, they're going to buy some random product offline and it could just be powdered milk, And so for me personally, I consume dairy. I'm drinking coffee. I have half and half of my coffee. Something about colostrum gives me the ick. I don't like it. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. So regardless of how good it is, I'm not interested in taking it. I think there are other ways you can get those nutrients in. So I haven't found a brand that impresses me enough to recommend taking it.
The first thought that came to mind is how these ancient eaters are going to do this like mental gymnastics, this like cognitive jujitsu to tell themselves like, oh, well, maybe we don't know, but maybe, thousands of years ago, our ancestors, when they couldn't get food, make sure they impregnated their wives, and then they were having the breast milk. There's always like a way they try to like put ancient culture back into some food. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. If it's a new supplement market or a relatively new supplement market or it's trending, what happens? People take advantage of it. Yeah. So now you're going to have, maybe there's some legitimate companies, but you're going to have some shysters who go in there and they have powdered milk or some, low grade whey protein, and they throw it into a thing and they charge triple the price and they send it out. And there's enough fine print and no FDA regulations where they're not going to get in trouble for this. So yeah, you're getting this third party tested. And then also, like you said, is it worth the risk reward if the studies aren't out yet and haven't been done yet? What could it possibly be doing? Is it getting you that 1% better? Maybe that matters if you're a bodybuilder, if I'm getting up on stage, if I'm Tyreek Hill and I want to get that extra step on people to get a touchdown. But if you're just like, Sally, who's like a stay-at-home mom, or Bob, who like works out 4 days a week and just doing bicep curls and he's an accountant, I don't see why people go above and beyond to like try to always bio-optimize with these like new crazy hacks.
For sure. Yeah. And I've had a lot of clients reach out to me about this and, ask for my feedback. And similar to some other fad diets and fad products, it's like everyone's looking for the shortcut. Everyone's like, well, if I take the colostrum, then I'll be skinny and fit and healthy and I can still live the same way I'm living. It's like, no, if you want to be healthy, it's not about taking one magic supplement, right? If you want to be healthy, it's about what you eat 365 days a year, how you move every day, every hour of the day, the water you're drinking, the stress, the sleep. It's, it's really a full picture thing. So there's no magic supplement. There's really no liquid gold. Yes, there are compounds and supplements and foods that are healthier than others, but do not take this with the impression that it's going to magically change your life, because it won't.
This is a random topic that I did not prep you on, but I know you'll have a good answer for it because I just thought of it as I was doing it this morning. Do you only use filtered water in your coffee and in your tea? And I feel like it's funny. I have a client who's British, and like the thought of like microwaving tea is like blasphemy over there, right? But like I do it when I'm in a rush,
sure,
because I'm in a rush and I just like can't find the tea kettle, and I'm like, whatever I have to do. But it is interesting. I make this argument with pizza, so I should make it with coffee, wherein there's such limited ingredients, they better all be good, right? The reason why we come from a place it's not an argument, who has the best pizza on the planet in New Jersey, is because they really focus on all three ingredients, right? You're always getting fresh mozzarella. You're never getting some nonsense. They really cook. They don't even call it sauce. They call it gravy. They make it themselves. It's not store bought. It's cooked, slow cooked for hours and hours and hours. And the bread is different. They really care about their bread, and it has a special water in it, right? 3 ingredients. They all have to be good. Well, with coffee and tea, you have 2 ingredients, right? Yeah. You have water and you have the coffee or the tea. So it's like, why do people skimp on it? And do you think it makes a difference? Could you tell the difference if you just like filled regular water up in your coffee or tea?
100%. I can tell the difference. Unfortunately, I think for most people, coffee and tea is how they primarily hydrate. Like I have clients, who start working with me and they drink more coffee than they do water. So if that is your main source of water, it has to be filtered. I have a fancy coffee machine. So I have a filter built in that I can change. And then I still take my filtered water and I pour it in to do a second round of filtration. I think one, you can taste the difference. 2, I live in Miami Beach. You can check your local water quality report. The water in Miami Beach is horrible. Like we have radon in our water, like all sorts of bizarre compounds. So I'm extra safe about it. And yeah, people 100% need to be thinking through that. I'll tell you what I don't do, and what I've thought about it. I need to change when I'm like cooking, right? So if I'm cooking pasta, I'm still using tap water, and so that's not great either, right? Because the chemicals from that water can be absorbed into whatever you're cooking. If you're cooking rice, if you're cooking pasta, if you're, steaming vegetables. So that's something to think about too. So if you can get some sort of water filter that goes either reverse osmosis under the counter, or if you can get something that actually goes on the faucet, it's not just the glass of water you're drinking. It's every way that you're using water in your home.
Yeah. There's also recent studies that came out that found like, it was trending because like Joe Rogan had said it. There was like particles of plastics in like sperm and in pee and all these things because,
plastics everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and even more so now because houses are built with PVC pipes because it's cheaper and it's easier to fix. So I own a house in a different state, in a different city. The house has been remodeled, but it was built in 1917. So the pipes there are not PVC. So all the plumbing pipes are cast iron, which maybe has other things that it leaches, but it doesn't leach microplastics, right? But now they're all built with PVC, and that apparently leaches stuff. So that's interesting that coming out with all these studies to see, who knows, down the road, maybe some people who have more money and are building houses will stop using the PVC because of that. I don't know. But also additionally, there's hard and there's soft water, which is different. I think people confuse like the hardness and the softness of water with like the minerality of water and the chlorine and all that stuff. It can correlate, but it's not causal, meaning like, so in Texas here, I forget the ratings. Maybe it's like 0 through 16 or something, 0 through 15. If your water's over like a 4 or 5, you typically want to have like a soft water system in your house. Culligan comes in, they have like a soft water system that softens your water. In Texas, where I am, my water's like a 10. So if I don't get a soft water system, basically every single time you shower and use any of the fixtures, like they come up with these like spots, and everything is this weird like stained like fog glaze all over it because of the hardness of the water.
Yeah.
Now, so people just always have soft water systems here. And when you get the soft water system, in addition to that, you can get all the filtration stuff added with it, which is usually actually very cheap for them.
Yeah, reasonable. Yeah.
The soft water system could cost you thousands of dollars, but then what they do is they throw in the filtration system for much cheaper because Culligan or some big companies already coming out to do it. But all you have to do is go to a pool store and you grab those little strips, and it's like litmus paper, and you just dunk it in a cup of water out of your tap, and you look at it and you just pair the color up with the line. And if it's a certain color of dark purple, it tells you basically the number of your color to see soft or hard. And when we did it in New Jersey and New York City specifically, the water actually was not very hard. And what my wife noticed as a side here is that her hair was so much nicer. So like she would get out, she was attributing it to her friend's shampoo. And then she got home and she bought her friend's shampoo and conditioner and did her hair here. She's like, maybe I ordered the wrong shampoo. I'm like, no, it was the water.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah. So on that note, I too noticed the same thing with my hair. I mean, part of it is the humidity right down here in the South, but my hair is 100% better when I'm up north. I just ordered a filter for Aurelia's bathroom, right, for my daughter's bathtub. So she used to have eczema, and we attributed that to like a dairy issue that I think she grew out of, right? Once we switched from cow's milk to goat's milk, the eczema stopped. But
you should just use colostrum supplements.
There you go, right? But we're prone to it, right? You had eczema growing up. I remember I had some eczema patches, so it's runs in our family. So but in the same way, we use baby shampoo, we use baby detergent. We're like very specific about what they do. The water, also needs to be extra purified for their extra sensitive skin. So I just got that for her, and I think that's important, right? It's not just the water you're consuming, it's the water you're showering with. And as a side note to that, some people think like, oh, my skin is fine, my hair is fine, no big deal. No, the problem is the water that's coming in when you shower and the steam that is building up in your shower. Not only is it bringing like whatever cleaning products you use into the air and you're able to inhale it, you're going to be inhaling whatever toxins are in that water, right? The steam is going to make it so now it can get into your lungs. So super important, not just for skin health, but I think for overall health to get those filters.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if that's going to be first on my list of all the things I have to do with a toddler. It's like there's only so much you can do. There's a funny guy on Instagram. He's a former drug addict, recovering drug addict, and his handle's like IDGAF. I don't give a food. Yeah. Foods. I think that's what it is. IDGA foods. And he only makes like one version of a video, but like it's basically the same video done with like different foods and a different story. They're always like under 25 seconds. And he'll like open up some food that everyone's like bashing. He's like, I don't give a F about red dye. I used to snort, cocaine off of bathroom floors in a gas station that had glass on it. He's like, just eat it. Stop being such a, what. And like he does all videos like that. He's like, I don't care. He's like gas station donuts. I don't care that this has like hydrogenated oils in it. He's like, I used to do methamphetamines in the back of a van and blah blah. But so it's just funny showing like the other side of like health and fitness, where some people are just like, hey, I can't like leave my house because everything is scary.
Right. Yeah. Two different perspectives. It's nice to add humor to it.
Cortisol cocktails. This is what I believe it is. I've looked it up. Orange juice, coconut water, sea salt, and maybe some other things like cream of tartar, which seems absolutely gross, or magnesium. Do you think this actually lowers your cortisol? Is this a stupid trend? Would you drink this?
I think it's a stupid trend. So the idea behind it is it's a non-alcoholic drink that can help with stress, fatigue, and overall adrenal health, right? Because a lot of people are suffering from adrenal fatigue. And so the orange juice is in there because it's high in vitamin C. When you are stressed, you burn through a lot of vitamin C. And so that's, an important thing to note. If you're stressed, definitely be taking more vitamin C. But I think the sugar in the orange juice is definitely not helping with stress or fatigue. And, similarly, the sugar in coconut water isn't helping with that either. So I don't believe in the cortisol cocktails. I think there are things that you can add to your diet, and there are other drinks you can do to support adrenal health and to reduce your stress. Electrolyte water is great, right? We need potassium, we need magnesium, we need sodium. So beverages like LMNT are great to have. If you're looking to reduce your stress, you can try chamomile tea. You can try lavender tea. Another good thing for stress and adrenal health, and like on the same line as electrolytes, is cacao powder, right? So every day, even when it's 90 degrees here in the summer, I make a homemade collagen hot chocolate. So cacao powder, a little bit of collagen, and the collagen is good because it has all of the amino acids you need, except for tryptophan, but we get tryptophan in other aspects of our diet. And the amino acids are what support our gut in creating all of the neurochemicals that we need, right? So if you're feeling anxious or depressed or stressed, you may be eating poorly and your body's not able to create the neurotransmitters it needs to feel good. So you really need to be getting those amino acids in. So I would say forget the orange juice and coconut water and cream of tartar, because that sounds disgusting. Collagen, cacao powder, a little bit of sea salt, maybe a little bit of honey, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would agree with this. Like a lot of, this isn't an argument, but like a lot of arguments, it's where's the starting point? So like, where are people on their journey here? If you're somebody who's like an alcoholic and you're trying to find a drink to just like wean off, and you want to start somewhere, yeah, of course, like maybe you just don't want to go to like Pellegrino from, if you're somebody who is
drinking screwdrivers,
screwdrivers all day long. So maybe this is a great thing, but yeah, I mean, ultimately we want you work your way down. I think there's almost nothing better and more refreshing than, we talk about like non-alcoholic drinks a lot that are like delicious, but just like getting fresh fruit and squeezing it into your like water or to your sparkling water.
Squeeze
like
some orange into a sparkling water, right?
Squeeze or lime. In there.
You'll get tons of vitamin C,
and
you won't get the sugar.
And you could start combining them. You can basically get like a water jug, right? And then you chop up your fresh fruit and you squeeze it in, and then you put the whole fruit in there, and it has a little handle on it, and like that's your drink for the day. And I think too, there's the behavioral aspect of you're creating it, so you're going to drink it.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you chop up the fruit, you make it. Yeah, you're involved in the process. Then you end up wanting to drink it. It's like what I do with my toddler when I want her to like eat the foods. Like she cooks dinner with me because I'm like, I'm not sure if she's going to like this, so I'm going to make her help me cook the dinner. So then she's more interested in actually trying it afterwards.
Yeah, I like that. I will say that, I don't think there's a harm in it other than the sugar in the orange juice and the coconut water. It's great that it doesn't have caffeine in it. I think people are living on caffeine, and that also is really hurting our adrenal health. But there are better options out there.
Let's stick on adrenal health, because when I did a little bit of research on this 5 years ago, it all seemed like bunk bullshit.
You don't believe in it?
Well, no, I'm not saying I don't believe in it. I literally have not looked at this in 5 years. I looked at it because as a personal trainer, I was having clients who were coming up to me sometimes and saying like, hey, what is too much caffeine? And that's a weird question because we're all different. And I say, well, our bodies are all different. There sort of has to be a feeling out process. There is certainly a number that is listed, right? Whatever that number is. But also, what is too much caffeine if you're already taking a lot of caffeine is going to be a different number than if you're not taking any caffeine. As most of us know, if you stop drinking coffee for 3 weeks and then you have a cup, you basically feel like you're on crack. You got to poop your pants and you run around the house. But if you drink coffee every single morning of your life,
yeah, no big deal.
It's no big deal because you're used to that amount of caffeine. But I started to look up adrenal fatigue, and there wasn't a ton of really good, I would say, like science-based things on it. But people who I trusted, who had knowledge, who were giving their take on it, a lot of them just said, hey, like this isn't adrenal fatigue. This is just like you getting used to caffeine. Basically, you're overdoing caffeine.
Yeah, I think there are two different things. I think you can have both, because I think you can have adrenal fatigue and not consume any caffeine. I think you could just be stressed, right? So what caffeine is doing is it is actually raising your stress hormones. That's why you feel like I'm ready to go in the morning, right? It's raising your blood sugar a little bit, and a little bit of that is great, right? It gets you going, but too much of that I think can be really harmful. So if you are drinking 2 cups of coffee and you feel nothing, I think it's time to take a break, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, you're correct in that our genes actually dictate how we metabolize caffeine. So I metabolize caffeine really well. I'm not really impacted by it. Other people, can have 1 cup and be off the wall. So it has to be personalized. I think there are a lot of people that will say adrenal fatigue isn't a thing and it doesn't exist. Because it's not necessarily in medical textbooks, but there are a lot of things that aren't in medical textbooks, right? Like the idea of leaky gut, the idea that like your intestinal wall could be compromised. That's, not in a textbook. And it's a thing, if you talk to a lot of experts about it. So, more so than just paying attention to your caffeine intake, it's what are your stress levels, right? Because again, you could have no caffeine and just be super, super stressed. I see this with a lot of women after they give birth, right? And this like fourth trimester where you're up with the baby, sort of like what you said in the beginning, right? You feel like you're at football practice because Mackenzie's crying, you jump up. And so when your adrenaline is constantly going, your adrenal glands can get fatigued because maybe they don't have all the raw materials that they need. Like I said, like the vitamin C, maybe you're not getting the nutrients you need, especially in, when you're dealing with kids, you put them first, you're not always eating and moving and doing all the things that you should be doing for yourself. So I think, monitoring your caffeine intake is important, but also it's like, what are your overall stress levels?
Yeah.
Let's pay attention to that.
I think the answer to fixing it is not taking a colostrum supplement or some adrenal fatigue 2.0. Just get some fucking sleep, right? Like get some help, go to sleep and reset, drink less caffeine, even though you have to sacrifice the short term for the long term. Like it's really, I'm saying this out loud because like I'm telling myself this because I do it too sometimes where I'm like,
for sure.
I wake up in the morning and I'm so well rested and I feel great. And I'm like, I do not need coffee this morning. Like, take a fucking day off. You don't need the coffee this morning. And it's going to help.
You should try what I have done. I have decaf coffee because I like the taste of it. I like feeling a warm mug in my hand. So on days like that, or sometimes on like my second cup decaf, I think we need to normalize decaf because people kind of like poo-poo it, like, oh, it's for old people, it's for pregnant women. No, it's not. It definitely has a lot of the same benefits as normal coffee. And most people don't need the extra caffeine.
Yeah. That's really smart. And it's such an easy thing to do that you said, like people always think it's just like for like, I remember like my grandmother using it or something like I would never drink decaf. What's the purpose of that? But I think also setting the routine, not around the coffee, but around the whatever you do is
ritual,
makes it less coffee-esque. So that's what I do now. I'm like, I set my alarm for a certain time. You never know with the toddler, but I try to get up before my toddler, like at least, you do the same thing, like at least like 30 minutes beforehand. And then I have like a routine in which I do. And it's not based around the coffee. Like the routine is like, I go into the room, whatever I do, I check my emails, then I check whatever else I want to check. I do a little bit of leisure stuff. And I could just as easily do all those things with a cup of water in my hand. Right. But it's not just that like I'm running to the coffee pot because I think that I need it. But it is something to keep in mind for people like, hey, if you feel like you have this adrenal fatigue, whether it exists or it doesn't, or you're just tired, sometimes using caffeinated supplements for when you're not tired, you're gonna face the repercussions down the road afterward.
Yeah. I've heard another expert talk about that. Like caffeine isn't magic energy, right? Caffeine is utilizing your stores of energy. So it's like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, right? Like eventually it's going to catch up with you.
Yeah. You're blocking the fact that you're tired. Your body knows you're tired. You're blocking those receptors. So what happens is eventually you're going to get more tired. Yeah. It makes sense to use it when you need it. But I think we all, including yours truly, certainly overdoes it because I think the other reason is, imagine, this is a weird conversation, but imagine there was no other way to get caffeine except just it tasting just like ass, like absolutely brutal, right? So like the only way you can get caffeine is if you were to, I don't know, shoot a needle in your arm, or like, the fact that caffeine
It's so easily accessible.
and delicious.
Starbucks on every corner. Yeah.
It's delicious. Not forget about the coffee. Like a Celsius is like, it's like my favorite drink. It's like, it's absolutely delicious to me. So like you have so many delicious options to get the caffeine that your mind is also, you have that cognitive dissonance convincing yourself like about like, oh, this is not that, like people like, oh, these drinks are not that bad for you. Oh, it's a little bit of caffeine. I need the caffeine and it tastes delicious. It's not that expensive. Like everything is like going towards like, buy this drink, buy this drink. Nothing is telling you not to, including the fact that it tastes delicious.
Right. Yeah, I think again, it has to be personalized, right? What's right for you? The textbook will tell you no more than 400 milligrams a day. For some people, 400 milligrams like may feel like it'll kill them. Right?
Yeah.
For people who haven't had that before, that's like,
I'd be bashing my head against the screen right now. 400 milligrams.
Insane. So, you have to do what's right for you, and at different times of your life, like you said, right? Like I think you can maybe, like when I was studying for my board exam, I lived on caffeine, right? That was just like the time of my life and I could do it. But it shouldn't be like a long-term thing where you're consuming that much. You have to, sort of pay attention and listen to your body.
You started working out with a trainer recently. What's been your experiences, positive, negative? What is the first thoughts that come to mind? Anything that just is top of mind?
Yeah, it's been really good. So this is my second experience with a trainer outside of you. First experience, not good. So there's like polar opposite experiences. I love this trainer so much. If anyone is in South Florida and needs a recommendation, please, reach out to me. So he worked with a friend of mine and she told me, how happy she was. So referred him to me. And the first thing we did when we got on the phone, the very first thing he asked were, hey, what are your injuries? What are your previous injuries and what are your goals? And I was like, thank you. Like, this is about me, because in the past I had a trainer be like, you look like you could put on more muscle. And it's like, no, you don't get to tell me what my goals are, right? Like I should be telling you. So did that. And then when we met again, he was like, walk me through your injuries again. Because initially I was like, no, I don't have any injuries. And then when he asked me a second time, I was like, actually, I do have a shoulder thing. And then I was able to talk him through that. So I really appreciate the extra follow-up to say, yeah, I do have like, an issue here. It was great. I was very specific because I want to be able to work out without him, right? I want to be able to work out with him and without him. So I said, like, I like to build muscle. I'm not into a lot of these like masculine movements. I don't want to deadlift. I don't want to bench press. I don't want to do squats with the bar and the thing. I was like, I'm more feminine. I'm happy to use dumbbells, but like, I don't want to be doing this stuff. And he was like, no problem. Like, we can make it work. I said, like, I only want to use dumbbells. He's like, great, we can do it. So I appreciate that type of flexibility, because similar to nutrition, it has to be personalized, right? If he was like, nope, the best way to build glutes is doing squats this way, and that's how we have to do it, well, then I'm never going to do it, right? In the same way, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I like want to lose weight, but I'm vegan, okay, well, we can't do the keto diet, right? Where that would work. So let's work with you and what like according to your preferences and your lifestyle. So it was great. And what's unique about him, and this is something I think we could get into in a later podcast, is he uses a suit. So it's basically like a vest, something that goes around my biceps, shorts, something that goes around my calves. And it sends electromagnetic frequencies to different muscles as I'm working out. So it's neat because you feel, the extra stimulation. And then what else is cool, because, certain movements, you have to engage certain muscles, right? So like, but that's hard to do, right? I've talked to you about that, where I'm like, I'm doing a squat, but I feel it in my quads, not my hamstrings. And you're like, well, you have to engage your hamstrings. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? But so here he can be like, engage your hamstrings, and he turns it on. I'm like, oh, now I understand what that means. So I think it's really helping to activate certain muscles. And what's cool about it is the workout's only 30 minutes. Because of the suit, it's supposed to sort of expedite the results. So I'm really happy. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, that's an EMF suit, I believe it's called. I did a whole podcast on a company and a trainer who who uses it in a class. And this was right at the start of my podcast journey. So probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I did this podcast on it, and I did some research on it, and it seemed legitimate. It makes sense. The technology is not new necessarily.
Right.
It's just better. It's optimized, and they're using it in a much different way. They do it in classes too, like sort of small group classes of like 4 or 5 people. Obviously, that makes sense because the suits are also expensive, so it might be hard for someone to dish out getting 60 of these suits. This was, again, 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe it's cheaper to make these suits. I haven't really looked into it more, but the science makes sense. The technology makes sense. So I'll continue to look into it. But just going back to what you initially said, I talk about this all the time on this podcast. I talk about this with other trainers. I have whole diatribes about this where it's very natural for us when something traumatic happens, and I hate using that word. So something difficult happens in your life, we put it in the back of our heads, and that's injuries included too. Yeah. And so I've worked out with clients before. I have their health history form, right? So a very detailed health history form. I sit down with them, we talk. I know so much about them. I know their grandchild's name. And a year in, they mentioned about a heart attack that they had 6 years ago. And it's like, that wasn't on your health history form, Kathy.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Oh, wasn't? I had a heart attack 6 years ago. I didn't tell you. It's like, so people forget these things, and you have to you really, really have to dig on a regular basis. If you see something anatomically you think is off with that person, you're their trainer, right? Ask them about it, because they might have just actually forgotten about said thing. They might have not gotten diagnosed with something they should have gotten diagnosed with, right? It's your job to dig into these things. Myself, I've had people recently ask me in conversations at dinner, have you ever been in any serious injuries? And I said, no. Right. No, nothing serious.
It's not top of mind. Yeah.
Well, because to me, they're not serious. I've had a double inguinal hernia surgery. I've had 2 surgeries on my hand. I fractured my sternum in a car accident. Those are all pretty serious injuries. But it's not top of mind. And maybe I don't consider them serious compared to somebody else. I work with clients, even small things, who had broke their ankle in tennis 40 years ago, right? So now they're 60 years old. They did this in their 20s, but it was very serious, and they've been compensating since then. And I can tell the difference in their leg structure, right? Because their calf size was very different. And that was the reason why, right? The old school casts they put you in for too long. They didn't know what they were doing back then. And the calf muscle just never recovered, basically, right?
Right.
So we have to dig into this. And then also, you should never tell somebody what they should do as their goal. That would be so odd. I
think he looked at me and felt like I'm skinny, right? So he's like, well, clearly you want to do this, but no, you don't know what I want.
Part of it is because they don't know any better, meaning right. they only have one skill set. So, when you're, as they say, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. So if the only thing he knows how to do is put people in a caloric surplus and lift in 6 and 8 rep ranges and build muscle, then he doesn't have the creativity to do anything
right.
else. So he was sort of imparting that on you because he was hoping that's what you wanted, maybe, or maybe it's just because he's an idiot. But either way, you always have to work with the client's goals, ask them what they want. And then the body is the tool. Everything else is just a toy that you play with, right? The body's the tool. You should be able to use anything in order to use it. And I have a whole big part of my book about that. It's called Duration, Object, Tempo, Stability. DOTS is the acronym. And those are the things you change up. You could always change up the duration of the exercise, the object you're using, whatever object that is, the tempo. In my world, we call it eccentric, concentric, isometric. That's just the hold, the down or the up, the positive, the negative movement, right? And then the stability, meaning maybe you're doing dumbbell curls here, but now your trainer says lift a knee in the air while you do them. Well, now you have to engage your core, because now your stability's off, right? So you can change any of those things and get creative with your exercises and never feel like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's another thing he did, and something that you've always talked about is, I'm not gonna have the right word for it, but multi-muscle group movements, right? Where you're not just doing a squat, but I'm doing arms as I'm squatting. And 1, I think it made it more interesting, and 2, I think it shortens the workout, right? I don't have to, because listen, I don't have 90 minutes a day, right? I have a toddler, we got a house and a job and a thing. So if we can condense this workout and I can do multiple muscle groups at once, I think it makes it more fun and interesting and different. And then also is expediting things, because you're not just focusing on one thing at a time.
Yeah, you're burning more calories, you're working harder, it's great. But the new generation, I can't even keep up with it. I don't even really know what Gen Z
The
is.
next Gen Z, what are we
Z,
at here?
They're back to more bodybuilding style Arnold Schwarzenegger, where that's frowned upon, because with the ultimately vanity wise, just pure vanity wise, a little bit strength, but certainly vanity, more vanity than strength, is you want to focus on one muscle because you want to wear that muscle out. And if you have other muscles helping that muscle too much, then you're not wearing that muscle out. Does that make sense?
Sure,
So they're doing they're isolating muscles. They're lifting more like bodybuilders. They don't want to do that because their goals are different than yours, right? Their goals are to show their ass and their arms on Instagram. It's not for like long-term health and wellness and to like feel good and to be healthy. So it's to each their own. But compound movements have sort of like almost been phased out, at least in the newer generations, because their goal is typically that they're eating in caloric surpluses, trying to put on muscle for vanity. They're not focused on long-term health and wellness.
Yeah.
Nobody listens. Lessons have to be learned. Speaking about this, perfect transition into the social media world. I have a prediction that 10 years from now, everyone's going to be doing what Usher and Pink are doing and deleting their social media. They're doing it for
I mean, listen, Usher's doing it for a different reason, so let's not even get into that right now.
They're doing it for a different reason. But you see these people, and it started on like Facebook, right? So I had Facebook when it first came out in college. And the stupid shit that I've written on there, who God only knows.
Gosh,
right?
I haven't even checked, right? Like what was I writing a decade
Who even
ago?
knows? We're not important enough people where it matters. We own our own businesses. We're not running for political office or something. But like at some point, I'm sure, right? Like, took 12 shots tonight, peed in the corner of the room. Like, there's been like weird,
Danced on the bar. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
like 20-year-old stuff that you've done that you maybe shouldn't have told people that you did, right? So.
And that, just for everyone's reference, this is also before adults and grown-ups were on Facebook. So when we had Facebook, it was just your friends, like your grandma, your aunt, like nobody else was on there. So it did seem like a safe space to say something dumb like that.
And you're just so stupid where you couldn't foresee what was coming. Who could, right? You couldn't foresee how it was going to work. And now you started to see it pan out. Like there'd be baseball players who get signed to a team, and the kid's like way younger than us, right? So like born in like, I don't know, 1998 or something, right? And he's like 18 years old, and they look back at his like Twitter when he was like 13, and he said something ridiculous, and it's like, and then he's getting like lambasted, like the whole city's like, you better take that back. You made like a weird, like Asian joke or something. It's like the kid was 13, right? And like those people used to make those jokes in private. Not saying that's okay. But it used to be done in private, and now they broadcast it to the world. And what I think, so people are starting to learn a little bit of that. But what I don't think people are learning now is being half naked and naked all over the internet. And I've talked about this before, but it's like you see these people. I get it. You're proud of your body, but you're 18, you're 19, you're 20 years old.
Is this a sexist thing? Is this girls, or are you talking about men too?
Men too. I think girls need to be more mindful, and I'll explain why. It has nothing to do with being sexist. I'll explain why. Either way. So if I'm a dad, right? I don't necessarily want pictures of me all over the internet, like as like a sexual object. I have a daughter. Right. Like weird, right? So, and then vice versa. The reason I think it's worse is because boys are shitty when they're teenagers. Girls are difficult to deal with, but boys are shitty. So I imagine sitting at the lunch table with my friends, right? And if I'm able to pull up Instagram and see one of my friends' moms who's hot, right? We always used to talk about like hot moms, but now I can see pictures of her in a bikini all over the thing. That kid is going to get fucking tortured at that table, right? He's going to be picked on. Your son is going to be tortured for that. Now it's different if there's a picture here and there. People go to the beach, they wear bathing suits, right? Like you can't stop it. But there's a difference between there being a picture of you and how you project yourself, right? If you project yourself simply as a sexual object, that's what I mean. So in men, it's different if you're like lifting weights outside, or a woman, you're lifting weights outside.
Yeah.
That's a different thing than like laying on the couch and like your lingerie stuff, whatever, or like the fitnessy stuff that borders. Like you're not lifting weights, right? Like you're not showing me that you're doing a lifting weights. It's after you've lifted weights Now you're showing me yourself naked in the bathroom. Like, that has nothing to do with like the art of lifting weights. That's just the vanity you get from it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, hindsight's always 2020. What's interesting is when I was in college, I was in a sorority and we had gotten in trouble with like the national sorority for throwing a party. I went to school in New Orleans, right? So we got in trouble a lot. But so the national people came down and said, okay, you can't have any pictures on Facebook of anyone holding a drink, holding a cup, holding anything, right? So we delete all our pictures. And I remember being so upset at the time, right? I'm 18. I'm like, I got to delete all these photos. Like, what? These are my memories. And thank God, thank God we deleted. How many dumb photos did you take in college? And so like, thank God, I don't have any of those. And I wonder if, people are going to be thinking the same things. Like, I think, listen, take the photos, have them in your phone, send them to your partner, send them to your friends, whatever. But do you need to post them to the entire world? Because like your employer can see that. And so, it's different for you and I because we've been out of like the public sector, right? We own our own companies, but like, I can't imagine like your boss or like even your coworkers, right? Like seeing you in this way, it just,
Well, remember, it's that third personality. I've talked about this before on the podcast. There used to be the Rebecca who her friends and her family knows, right? You act maybe a little bit different around, myself and our other sister, Abby, and your best friend, Stacy, and you have that Rebecca. Then you have the Rebecca you present with your clients. You would hope that they're not a huge variance, but maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe you're a little bit more buttoned up because that's what you do, right? It used to be two yous. But now there's a third iteration of that, and it's the online version. And it's sometimes people pick out something that they wish they could have been, right? So like I see these people, I have these friends who like aren't or not funny, but they like want to be funny. So they like try to be the funny person on Facebook or something, right? And you see these people who was hoping that they were like the athlete or the person who was in really good shape, and they started to get in really good shape and they want to be that person. So they're like projecting this other version of themselves via online through the images and through the photos, but they compartmentalize that. They don't see that in the other areas of their life. But guess what? Other people do. Like just when you shut the computer down and you think I'm back to version A or B of Steve, if C is the online version, but it's like, no, that version still exists. And everybody interconnected with you, including your children, are going to be associated with that. So like, you got to be careful.
Sure. Yeah. And I am a big fan of body positivity. I think there's a lot of, especially for women, right? There's a lot of shame that goes around. Like, do you have a bikini body? So like, feel good in your body. Feel good in the way you look, take the picture, but just be.
But do you feel good if you need others to tell you feel good? My argument is no, because the people who feel the best don't need to show you.
Don't need external validation. I get it. But if I can compare it to this, like if I make this I really love baking, right? And photographing it. So if I make these really beautiful cupcakes, I love it. They're beautiful. I take a picture and I want to put them on the internet. I know they're beautiful, but it still feels good to have other people tell me like, wow, Rebecca, those are beautiful, healthy cupcakes. So I get it. But I think, like you said, you have to be, if you can be proud of it, but you have to be aware that even if your profile is private, how many people are seeing that? And then, it's like we do have all these different versions of ourselves, which is normal, right? I speak differently with my aunt than I do with my best friend, but it's like, and now everyone's seeing this one version of yourself. So who do you want to portray online? And keep in mind that like down there, how are you going to feel about this in 10 years, 20 years? Because once they're out there, right? I don't know how many apps you have on your phone. Every app's like, can we have access to your photos? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, right? Like, yes. How many things have we guessed that we don't even know about? Even if you delete your Instagram, your photos are out there, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the internet works exactly, but like they're there. The pictures of you are there. So, important to be mindful of, especially young kids, right? Who don't really understand all the repercussions.
I'll also say, going back to what you just said before, I'm not so sure about that, and time will tell. Meaning, the small things which we don't believe are big problems now, like, hey, I baked a cake and I just want to show everybody, or hey, like I got a promotion, so I'm going to go on LinkedIn and tell everyone I just got the certification. The problem is the secondary effect from that could change the motivational factors behind what you want to do. So what I mean by that is, it seems innocent enough, But what happens is for some people, not for everybody, some people have better control of this, but for some people, the internal reward is, instead of I enjoy baking, I'm just using this as a whatever,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
Or I'm proud of myself for getting the certification, that actually the most rewarding part is other people
yeah,
telling me that I did a good job. So now my internal motivation to do things is less based off of my enjoyment of the thing and more based off of the other thing. And like, so I'm just making up a scenario here. What happens if, you're in the kitchen, not you specifically, but I'm just somebody, you're in the kitchen, you're having a great time, right? Your daughter's like enjoying it. Maybe she's like, she's playing a little bit. She's eating some of the stuff you're making, right? You're just having like a great day. It's sunny out, whatever. You bake this cake. It comes out just how you want to. You do whatever. You take a picture of it and you get 2 likes. And maybe someone goes, "What the fuck is that ugly thing?" And then, and then there's another scenario where the total opposite of that happens, right? So it's like your daughter's throwing stuff all over the house. The cake didn't go how you wanted to.
But the picture's great. Yeah.
It tastes like crap. It didn't come out how you wanted to. You spent too much money to make it. You're never going to eat it, right? Like the doorbell's ringing, but you took a picture of it and you got 100 likes. And it's like, so the motivation and the intrinsic part like bakes away from that. And that's what, honestly, just the reason I'm saying this is because every day I'm this close to just deleting everything.
Yeah.
Like every day I'm this close to just saying, I need to make sure that I like and never get to there. And when I feel like I am getting to there, when is it time to say, like, can I just pull the plug? And some people go, oh, I'll do that by just pulling the plug for an hour, a day, a week. But for me, it's like this, I enjoy this. I don't care. Right. I don't care if one person watches or 3 million people watch.
You like what you do. Yeah.
I enjoy this. But the kind of the banter back and forth, like the commenting and stuff, like I could completely get rid of all of that side of the internet and social media and feel like maybe I'd be even happier.
Yeah. Well, this actually goes full circle to what you were talking about in the beginning with parenting, right? Because one of the big things they say now, which I'm guilty of, is you're not supposed to say, I'm so proud of you, right? So Mackenzie comes in, she draws this really beautiful picture and you say, I'm so proud of you. It's so beautiful. Because now, right, we're teaching them at a young age to like rely on this external validation. So instead it should be switched to say like, wow, do you think it's pretty? What's your favorite part?
Well, my argument is it should be both, but yeah.
You should be so proud of you. But it's interesting because, I bring that up because it starts at a young age, right? At a very young age, we are seeking our parents' approval. We're seeking our teachers' approval. Like you are sort of looking around you to say like, am I doing this right? But yeah, I think that has escalated in a way that is really hurting people's mental health. So yeah, I struggle with it too. I will go like a week with, I'm like, I'm not even going to get on social media, but then, it is a big part of my business. Right. So, it's challenging. With the one thing I've read and tried to do, which has helped is, this is for all, business owners, content creators, is create before you consume. So like don't go scrolling, right? Get on, make a reel, post it. And then if you want to give yourself 10 minutes to scroll, but if you initially are consuming all of this stuff, it's going to impact your creativity. It may impact your confidence, right? Well, this person is doing it this way and this person got 100 likes and this person got 10,000 and whatever. Don't do you. So you have to just, create first. So I try to do that. Just use it to create and not even look at the comments, not even, and that hurts because engagement is really, what the algorithm wants to see. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, it's well said. And I think as long as you can find a way to like, just make it positive, I think that's really the important part. There's so much of this, like, what do they call it? The rage bait. You know what that is?
Yeah.
So like, it's a new thing where people do it. And like, these kids are great at it. So like a kid will have his shirt off and he's like, you take pre-workout? He's like, everyone knows the best thing is baking soda. And he like snorts a line of baking soda off the car. And he's like, look how jacked I am. And he like runs away and he's not jacked. And he doesn't really probably do this. And maybe it wasn't even baking soda. But all the videos are like that. And he gets 1 million comments because everyone's like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. But that helps the social media,
insane,
right?
Yeah.
And he trends and he goes far. So like, there's just like this. And I don't mean rage bait like contrarian. I mean rage bait like, they're literally thinking of videos like, how do I get people to like go crazy?
Stirred up, yeah.
Like, what could I do to get stirred up?
Yeah.
But I will say, going back to the one parenting comment, I am a contrarian. But I do hate that we try to like reverse engineer parenting that's been going on for like hundreds of years successfully. Like we have a pretty nice world. We've gone to the moon, although people debate that. We certainly have spaceships. We've gone into space. We can replace the human heart in a few hours and keep people functioning. We have very nice people all over the planet. We have great things. Like parents did a pretty good job for many of years, right? So like these people are so sensitive about like saying like, oh, don't tell your kid that you're proud of them. It's like, no, you could do both. You could also say like, hey, I'm proud of you in this, but also there's a reason why kids should want your love and attention, because they are going to function better in the world by understanding there's other people, and I need to make sure that my actions, because I know that they do, my actions are in line with other people's actions who are functioning adults. It's not all about me. Who cares? Like, I don't want my kid to just think like every second they do, it's like, oh, dad disapproves, but I liked it. Dad disapproves that I threw crayon on the wall, but I liked it. So like there's this other whole side where I feel like these parenting behavioral people are just like, they're not balanced. And that leads to maybe the last thing we'll talk about here is I made a comment on like a post about sleeping with children. It was sort of like, a little bit tongue in cheek, but I said, if you
say sleeping with your own children,
you
need to get really clear here.
If you're a parent and you allow your child to sleep in your bed, or at least on a consistent basis, not just like, hey, my kid's having
co-sleeping,
a nightmare, co-sleeping. And I'm going to caveat here, I would never tell a parent what to do with their child, because we just had this whole conversation before. All children are different, just like all humans are different. All your clients are different. You're going to give them different nutritional packages. I'm going to give my clients different training packages. We're going to treat our children different, right? But I said, if you sleep with if you co-sleep, chances are that child will be an only child. And the reason I said that was twofold. Number one, when do you and your partner have relations? And then two, it's probably going to hurt your marriage and your relationship with your partner, because of the fact that like that's a great time for most people who have real jobs and who work to talk at the end of the day and to like go over their plans, what they're going to do with their kids and all these other things. Like it's time for the adults to get together. And then three, maybe the most important part is there are studies on this, and these kids who sleep with their parents past a certain age have a way higher level of anxiety. It's just that these are the studies. I'm not telling you you can poke holes in any studies, but that's what the study said. What do you think about co-parenting, co-sleeping?
We don't right now. I can't say that I never will, because for a long time my husband was like, we can't let the dogs sleep in the bed. The dogs will never sleep in the bed. Now both dogs sleep in the bed with us, right? So it's like your views can change, but I agree with you that you can't overlook how it's impacting your marriage, right? So for some people, maybe they have date nights scheduled every Tuesday, Thursday, and they can do this and they have their own time, and that time at night isn't as sacred for them. Although, I think for most people, like you said, I think that is the case. What I can see myself doing later on is going into her room. So in her room, we have a crib and a bed, and sleeping in her bed if necessary, but not every night. Again, like when she has a bad dream, but it's also kind of what we're used to, because growing up, we didn't sleep in our parents' bed, right? So like our parents had a double bed their whole lives. I don't know how they functioned in that. So there was just no room for us, right? So we didn't do that. It's not what we're used to. I do feel like the sleeping on their own fosters independence, which is like ultimately what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to create independent, confident kids. So to each their own, but just
I'm on board with you. We don't, to go back to what the thesis of this, though, right? Which we started with the very beginning, and we're all tying it together, is that everyone's very different, right? So if your parenting style, though, right, is to let all of your kids sleep in your bed, right? If it's always co-sleeping, or if it's always not co-sleeping, then you're probably doing it wrong. Meaning, right? So like it should be based off of the child. But when the parents make a decision in advance, a lot of times it's based off of them. So the parents who co-sleep sometimes go, oh, it's better for my child. My child has less nightmares, have less this. It's like, is it better for your child? Or are you doing this because it's better for you? Because it's hard on you that the child wakes up sometimes with nightmares, that it's hard on you to get up in the middle of the night to do this, that you like to sleep next to your child, right? Ask these questions. But you can easily throw that argument back at me and saying, oh, is it better for you that your child's not sleeping with you? Because
but you've answered that question. You're saying it is. You're saying, listen, I have to prioritize my marriage because
yes.
you know what, married parents are actually better for a child's well-being, right, than divorced parents. So that makes sense. I think you have to again parent the child that you have and look at your family and your relationship.
And then we don't know people's schedules too. So like, I wake up every day at 5:30 and like I have shit to do. And like my wife has to travel a half hour to work and she has stuff to do. She has a very important job. And, maybe some people have a little bit more flexibility where they're sleeping to 9 a.m. And like, it's okay that they don't sleep that well at night and the kid wakes up in the bed and starts kicking you and doing whatever because they're sleeping longer, right? Like, I don't know everyone's life. I would never tell someone what to do. I would never say this is absolutely wrong. It was sort of tongue in cheek again why I said it. But for me, I would think that a lot of people say they're doing it for their child, but they're really doing it for themselves.
They at least need to be introspective that, who is it really for?
Yeah.
I agree.
I think we've wrapped up everything here. Oh, no, last thing. I didn't look into this at all. I don't know if you did. So maybe we can push this to next time if you want. But TikTok teamed up with who for medical fact checking? This is scary to me.
Well, I have two separate feelings about this. One is that as a scientist, I consider myself a scientist, right? It's crazy that we live in a world where there can't be facts anymore, right? It's like everyone is refuting everything. So I like the idea that we can have facts. We can have facts that like, this is true. This is evidence-based. However, if it's coming from China, that's a little bit scary, right? With their government propaganda. So it's like, what are they going to allow? So like half of me thinks freedom of speech. Let's have all the crazy theories out there. But then the other half is like, no, we really do need something that's like responsible and evidence-based. So, let's see how it unfolds, right?
Yeah. The problem is a lot of things that seem fringe at some point end up not being so. So if you control in the front part, right, in the beginning of statements in general, right, this is why we have in America, we have freedom of speech. Even the British in the UK, they don't have a First Amendment like we do. So if you control on the front end for people not to say these things, a lot of times, things get labeled as now like misinformation and disinformation and like are actually true, but they never get to make it through the journey of being analyzed properly because they're cut out right away. And that's really the problem is what gets framed as that, who has control over it. And I agree with you. Yeah. You would like people not to just be able to say outlandish things.
Let's go back. When you said who, the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. The World Health Organization, which unfortunately has a lot of ties to China. It's a little bit corrupt. They, during the C word pandemic and other things, there was a bunch of shady stuff going on. So they do not have a great reputation, and rightfully so. Like anything else, they're people, and people can be corrupted, and people can do the wrong things, right? So that's all these three-letter organizations are just a bunch of people. So, and we all make mistakes, and we're all prone to corruption. So controlling this on TikTok specifically, let's forget about like the First Amendment stuff and free speech, which doesn't really matter for TikTok because it's Chinese based. But my worry is that China, without getting too political here, right, has reasons to say what is considered misinformation and disinformation as a sort of geopolitical, they've
done that. They have a history of doing that.
Strike to us. So that's really what's concerning. If we were to implement something like that, that's maybe a little bit different. We would look at this with a different eye. But the fact that it's TikTok and WHO, World Health Organization, teaming up to say what's misinformation, which has been this weird term that people have been throwing around, right? People saying, oh, this is misinformation, this is disinformation, and describing exactly what they are. And a lot of times you see like misinformation, disinformation, where there's just like one small thing that's off in said statement, and it could be considered like misinformation, right? So like, as opposed to disinformation. So I might say like, we have found out that, 300,000 people did not die in 1926 from the bubonic plague, right? It might have been 296,000. Right? So it's like,
Right.
but the way they refute it and still strike it as misinformation, well, because I was off by 4,000 people. So, there's also the context behind what's going on and the corrections. And I feel like it gets a little bit 1984 dystopian and scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And now it's like, so where do you go? Like, where can you?
The TrulyFit Podcast. What do you mean?
If that information is being controlled.
You come here.
There you go. The
true
source.
This is your source. Quickly, last thing here, update on my fitness goals. No real update. I said I was trying to run under a 4.640. I'm not quite there yet. I've made strides. I'm not completely under the 4.6 yet. And I've started to run more, like actually run as opposed to sprint, because I'm enjoying it. It's therapeutic in my head, but it's also helping me improve my sprinting time, right? It's not hurting it necessarily, but no big updates. When I hit that 4.6 number, I will let people know.
We're going to celebrate.
Well, Beck, thank you for joining the TrulyFit Podcast as usual. I'm sure we'll do another one of these in the next few weeks. And quickly let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Happy Healthy Nutritionist, or my website, happyhealthynutritionist.com.
And remember, this is on YouTube. Not my solos that are done on Thursdays are not always on YouTube, but there should be a solo every Thursday, which are 5 to 15 minutes of me talking about a trending topic. This has been the TrulyFit Podcast. Becca, thanks for joining in.
Thanks.